Welcome to the Energizing America podcast, where we talk all things business, energy, and people, and why we need it in our communities and business. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Nate Jacob. He's Wescom's Bakken operations manager, to discuss his journey over the past 8 years. Nate has a great story and has been with Wescom through the ups and downs. He's grown from an apprentice up to a leader of over 50 people in the Bakken forest. I'm privileged to have team members like Nate to help lead Wescom. Enjoy this episode. You will not want to miss it. So Nate, tell me, you've been with Wescom for several years now. And when you first came on board, you were an apprentice electrician, right?
That is correct.
And you've moved in from you were an apprentice electrician. What year did you start with us?
It's 2014. It was actually December 18th, I believe, in 2014. So I came up during the winter months.
That's incredible, because not very many people make the decision to come up in the winter and then stay. So that was about a year after we had really started experiencing a boom. But how many people were here when you first came? Do you remember?
At least eight maybe.
We were a small crew.
Yeah, maybe 10.
Yeah.
10 guys.
So we've since grown. So you come to us, how old were you when you came out to the Bakken that first time in 2014?
30 years old.
30 years old, you head out to the Bakken, you join this cowboy of a company. I mean, by then we were really trying hard to find our footing. You were probably considered an old man when you joined our team, in fact. Because we were full of young apprentices.
Absolutely, yeah.
And especially at that time, it was incredibly difficult to find a journeyman electrician willing to come for a reasonable price, and labor was scarce, and that was a challenging time. But we only had a couple clients working for us. How many people are out here working under you? 50?
Pretty close. The way things are going, end of year, I don't see why we wouldn't hit that 50 mark without any issues.
Yeah.
Employees, so.
There's always, as you go through a journey in a business, there's always good parts and bad parts. And I think if we wanted to be honest, we could come up with a lot of bad parts about 2014, and we could actually come up with a lot of bad parts about now, right? If we think about the good things, when we're a little bit larger like we are now, our client diversification is awesome. Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, we fell flat on our face. We still kept some people going. And I'm convinced the reason why that was able to do is because of our client diversification. There was one client, right? We went down to no guys working there?
Yeah, it got pretty alarming there for a while. A couple of our clients kept us going. There was one that basically just shut the doors during that, and which is really tough. We lost a lot of good hands through that. It's tough to see. So
you come in as an apprentice electrician. Eventually work yourself up. You left for a little while too, right?
Yeah, I left for a little bit. They always say that grass is never greener, and that is a true statement. It's the empowering, I think, of people and giving the opportunities, and we want everyone to succeed internally. And you don't always get that with other companies. You're just a number. But yeah, you said it. I came in when I was 30 years old, compared to Lane Blakeman was here when he was 17 or 18 or what, I don't know, young guy doing this trade, and I'm 15 years older or whatever than some of these guys, and just starting off brand new.
Lots of opportunity in this field, especially out in the Bakken.
Absolutely. So when I came in, totally green to electrical, didn't even know what controls were, had no idea. But I can tell you what I was doing before I made this commitment, it wasn't working. I think I was working 2 jobs. My wife was working 2 jobs, and we were falling farther and farther, each year in the hole. Just like a lot of families out there, we were struggling. So we made that change, came out here, and was given an opportunity. It started out just running equipment, doing a lot of the labor work. For whatever reason, I was given an opportunity to get into the control sides, going from labor and new construction and now into the controls and the function of locations. To be honest, the opportunity was given to me. People say I succeeded. I feel like I'm not one to talk me up at all. Plenty for me to learn and still do learn. That opportunity was there, and it helped progress to where I am now. After you mentioned I left for a little bit, you were kind enough to bring me back, and then basically was working directly under Devin Fraser over at WPX as a direct report. And I don't know how many people actually knew I even worked at this company.
We rarely saw you.
Because you never saw me.
Yeah, you went straight out to location.
The work orders came directly in from our client, and I worked my daily schedule through them. In fact, somebody made the comment, you guys were looking, we had some transitions happening at WPX at that time, and some management was moving out, and there was discussion of, who are we going to get to fill this role? Who can step up and do this? And I think someone put my name out there, and the response was, who is that? And that's my current boss, who now knows me, John Simonson. He finally knows who Nate Jacob is. But yeah, I don't think he knew who I was. But that's just how it was. I was working directly for Devin Frazier over and Josh Halverson over at WPX, and just taking care of that client more on a one-on-one basis. So, but yeah, you guys blessed me with that opportunity. Somebody mentioned my name. You guys gave me the opportunity. I stepped in there, and I think 2 new construction sites going at any given time, plus the artificial. They kind of ran it in 2 separate stages. So I want to say we had close to 30 guys before that dang COVID hit, and we were up and running and cruising. It was really fun to see the progression there, see that take off.
We head into COVID, things really got tough, but we come out of COVID, and all of a sudden, you're no longer a direct report. The interesting part about that whole deal, Nate, John comes from a very commercial and residential background, right? And he knows industrial, and especially now, the dude is phenomenal with his wealth of knowledge. He had to get his head around the way employees work in the oil field, and the way you're working for Wescom, but so often our producers end up pretty much snatching our employees and dictating what their days look like. Now, I think post-pandemic, some of that has shifted a little bit. We don't see that as much. But I think there's another thing that happened there too, which, as we elevated you into a management role, we finally had an actual presence in the Bakken that was here all the time. And I think that gave our clients confidence to always call the client relations manager that's here to delegate the work to the person you see fit.
Absolutely.
That was missing pre-pandemic. I think that's been one of the coolest things that came out of the pandemic, was the need for us to recognize, okay, as we recover, and if we want to be, which we absolutely want to be in the Bakken for the rest of our life, we have to have somebody who lives and breathes in the Bakken. And I think, it's pretty obvious you've done a stand-up job. When we came out of the pandemic, what did we have? 20 guys? Not even 12?
I don't even think we had that many. No. Wasn't very many.
It was a bleak Christmas party out here when we had almost 60 guys right before the pandemic hit. And I think we went all the way down to, I think it was maybe a dozen, maybe even less. I don't remember. 2020 has such a dark hole. What I want to remember is the good that came out of it. Definitely one of the good things is yourself. You're managing not just one office. You got 2 different offices. How many clients?
You want to talk about clients? We support a wide range of different calls, I guess, and our major clients. There's 4 to 5 that are pretty consistent,
And within those clients, what are we doing for them?
Anything from service calls to commissioning locations and running through facility kills and operation, all the way from new construction of oil-filled sites. And some of these random calls that we get it's pretty interesting what we're doing. So there's been times where we're driving all the way up almost into Canada to help facilitate some service issues at a gravel pit. You mentioned what we do for them and where we've come. If you want to look, back when I started, we just did electrical, right? I mean, that was it. We were just building sites.
And electrical new construction only, I might add.
We've got 20% of our guys working in a more of an I&E commissioning set. I would say, another 30 or so is into maintenance work and keeping the facility operating, and then the rest over in new construction. So we've kind of branched that out. We even have, clients coming and asking for oddball stuff, and we don't like to turn stuff down. We'll support however we can. And one of our clients asks us to go and tank strap their facility. One of their new facilities that comes online has to be ran through and verified that the measurements and the readings and all that are correct within their tanks, and sent off to the state for acknowledgement. And it's pretty interesting, but it's something that, we've always had that mindset here at Wescom is, we will take care of you, whatever's needed. I remember taking those calls and going out and servicing the client. And it's not just me. There's plenty of employees here. I could just list off so many names that you get that call, and it's that willingness to go out in a negative 20-degree weather and go climb a radio tower because comms are down. And it maybe it's Christmas Eve or it's over a holiday break, and those phone calls come in and we take them. There's not even a question about it. You go out.
I don't know if people realize that that's literally true stories, right? Negative 20, climbing a radio tower, Thanksgiving, client barking. The client is never around on the holidays, right? That's why we especially get those calls. You know, while they're opening up their Christmas gifts, they're wondering why we're not getting the work done. But you're right. We've always just embraced that. But if you think about the types of work that we do and the opportunity that comes with it, you know, you even say 50% of our work is involved in new construction, but I ran some numbers and some analysis recently, and I came up with 35% of our Bakken work specific tied to new construction.
That's even better.
I think the other 15% that we're talking is more on like MLC work, right? Management of change, they're upgrading a facility. So it still is construction related, but one of the good things about it is that allows us to have a bit more confidence long-term about the Bakken.
Absolutely.
So when we're hiring people and they're bringing their families here and they're making this their permanent home, it feels a bit better that when oil prices dip and production goes down and construction stops, we still have a very solid set of work. I mean, one of our clients up in Williston, that's all we do is maintenance. And how many guys are we running up there? 8 to 10, depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's just literally, we get a work order every day. Jason sits there in the office, collects the work orders in the morning. Those guys all show up. They got the best camaraderie and attitude towards safety and watching out for each other. And I got that work order. I'll take that one. And off they head. And they do bang out a 12-hour day. And then they show up again tomorrow at 7 a.m. and do it again. We had one guy up there, an apprentice electrician, worked himself into a journeyman electrician standpoint. He got licensed, this year? Got married a few months ago, and he's running one of your biggest clients over here in Watford now. Those are the kinds of opportunities that exist for the young kid that wants to come give it a try.
You see that all over the place out here with Wescom. I mean, I've got stories from wanting to pull my hair out back when, I was running the new construction, artificial lift, and now this guy that just used to drive me insane because he had this arrogance to him is now, he has stepped up. We've grown into this. We've got this relationship that's just, it's great. We trust each other. We acknowledge each other. I mean, he's over on our commissioning crew, and now he's running through and testing these facilities and commissioning these facilities for one of our biggest clients. And like the growth that you see with these, like you said, these apprentices, whether you want to go and get your journeyman card or maybe you slide more into the instrumentation and control side and you take that route to more of a programmer, it's really cool to see. But the opportunities have always been there to succeed. If you want it and you have that work and drive, there's nothing that really keeps you from growing within this company.
Right. I love the story of Calvin, right? Because he was one of the original 4 or 5 that was here. And, he comes from Wisconsin, starts out as an apprentice, and we're just picking up the dirt work at that time. Like whatever the other contractors don't want, we're scraping up. He fell in love with it and he just wanted to succeed. So before you know it, he becomes a journeyman electrician, but along the way, he really loves controls. So he gets super active in controls. The cool thing about the Bakken is that it's not just the companies that provide the opportunity like Wescom, but it's also the client. That client really believed in Calvin and gave him an opportunity, just like they did with you. You guys can go learn all that stuff. And now Calvin moves back to Minnesota, which was his worst mistake he ever did, if you ask him. But there he is in Minnesota, and he hopefully came with a savings account, and same kind of, you talked about that financial benefit of even coming out to the Bakken. You combine opportunity with financial benefit, and you can seriously propel your future. And I think that's kind of a missing story in the Bakken, because I don't know how it was for you when you first came, but when you told people you were in the Bakken within your family, or when you told peers or anyone, like, I'm working in North Dakota, what kind of response did you get?
It was kind of shocking, actually. And honestly, it's never, it's always, are you still up there? Why are you up there? This is where the work's at. The work is good. That's it. What other reasons do you need? It's given me the opportunity to to succeed in life is this work up here. We were struggling every year, and I always had that work ethic behind me. It just never went anywhere with my current state. And it was a game changer to come up here and work in the Bakken in this industry, given the opportunities, and my life turned around so quickly on that financial side of things.
Did your wife come with you when you first came?
I brought her up for a little bit. After about a year, her family's from Idaho, and her dad actually got deployed, serving in the Air Force at the time. He was deployed out. And so she went back, lived with her mom while he was gone. I would say 3 years that we actually lived apart.
It's a long time.
Up here, and she was back home.
And the reason why I ask that is you've mentioned opportunity a couple times. Like, Wescom gave you this opportunity, and it's interesting to me because I don't think we gave you any opportunity. Opportunity is earned. You bravely come out to North Dakota, and you hadn't done electrical before, right?
No.
Out on a pad you go. It's 20 below. You're wearing this FR gear that you'd probably never heard of. You got a hard hat on. You got your steel-toe boots on. The wind is whipping. And you go meet 4 or 5 people that are working on that location. You're working 12-hour days.
I'm doing 12s now.
And back then, we were working 12-hour days, along with if a service call came in at 8 o'clock at night. And we still do that, but you yourself are much more comfortable with that now. Because we've had sometimes folks come out, they want to be an electrician. And they arrive out on location, and in their head, an electrician stands by a panel and does some terminations, but they don't last here. Right? Because if you're going to have to lace up your boots, you're going to be the one digging that trench. You're going to be the one, installing a lot of cable tray, doing a lot of, using your hands a lot. You're going to be running a lot of grounding. That's the first thing that we do on those locations is you do a big old ground ring, and maybe isn't the funnest thing to start with, but it gets you the basics and you work up from there. But if you're not willing to do that, stepping up, you're probably not going to be given an opportunity. We earn opportunity. You come out here, you were here for a while, you went back home, tried something else. What brought you back that second time?
The management style, everything was just, it wasn't a right fit. I think we actually talked a couple times, or I don't know, maybe somebody got wind that I wasn't happy with where I was, and maybe you reached out to me. I can't remember what happened. It wasn't even a no-brainer. I was just like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that is right. I remember that time, and that client really wanted a direct report person. And I had thought back to our prior working relationship and like, man, Nate's the right guy for that. The challenge with that is you're always like, I don't want to pull somebody to where they don't want to go. Right. So I hope I didn't pull you back. I hope it was well, I know I didn't because
it wasn't even a question. It was, I think I made that I gave notice that same day. I was like, yeah, I'm out.
When you've been in the Bakken for 6, 7 years, 8 years now, are there any like surprises about the Bakken that you think back like, I can't believe that? I mean, it has to be you met some serious oddball Wisconsin kids over the years. I mean, that had to have been a surprise. 18-year-old cheeseheads out here that can move a shovel fast, by the way.
It is so impressive. Like I said, you can get irritated with some of these young bucks. There's a lot of good that comes with them too. It is very impressive with the work that they can get done. It's a work ethic that's lost, I think, a lot of the times. You say Wisconsin, young men, kids, whatever. But the thing is even in the Bakken, not many people are from here. Everybody's coming here to work. A lot of people are, from Texas or Arkansas. These are different cultures. It's just, there is a mix up here of...
It's a very diverse workforce here. Yeah.
Yes. The funnest thing is, you get to learn these backgrounds and where these guys come from and what they've been doing. And it's not the same. It's not the same from Wisconsin to Arkansas to where these guys came from. So it's pretty cool to see what these guys have been doing and what skills that they bring to here to the Bakken.
I remember another awesome employee of ours, Warren Corey, when he came out here. I remember visiting with him at our shop one night, and he said, "You know what the coolest part about this, Shane, is? Everyone you go up to, you can ask them one question, and you'll have a long conversation. Yeah. Where are you from?" And off you go. And
they're not from here.
Right.
They've got this huge backstory behind them, and it's pretty cool.
It's fascinating to meet all those people. Do you find like you have time to actually ask them those questions nowadays, or is it different?
Oh, you say time. I feel like there's not enough time. Over the years, you get to know these people, in their background. It's not an instant, because it is a bigger company now, where we only started with maybe 8 guys, and we've got 40, it's almost to 50 guys now. It's a lot harder to have that one-on-one interaction, but it still does come.
I think what really happens is there's a lot of guys here, especially now more than ever, who've been here for a long time. Like we know each other. A surprise to me about a growing team is how if you know that first core group of people, like minds work together. You're not going to find a really hardworking guy enjoying working with a team that doesn't like to work. That just doesn't really happen. So if you can build that right core people, your Nates, your Warrens, your Kelvins, your Johns, get those people in, they attract other people and it just builds upon itself. So in some degree, you almost already know each other before they even start. I can almost tell when I meet somebody on a location, I feel like I could state their story just based on who they're working with, if they're smiling and they're having a good day. Okay, I know that Dylan, I already know his backstory just based on the way he's interacting with Zach. I can tell they have the same background, right? Mm-hmm. Not to say that's always successful, and there's nothing better than working on a location with a guy, you're pulling cable tray, it's wet, cold, miserable, whatever the deal is, you get to know each other quite well. Mm-hmm. And how many hours are these guys driving a day?
Hours, at least 2.
And I think a lot of them, I think they probably catch up on some Z's when they're traveling. They get to know each other pretty closely. As you think about going from an apprentice electrician into this I&E role where you're a direct report, going through a massive downturn with COVID, coming out of that, now you're running a couple offices. You got to join these annoying conference calls with myself and others at Wescom, and we're trying to do all this business stuff and talking about client diversification, and you need more trucks and everyone needs trucks. So we're going back and forth through all of this. Is there somebody that sticks out that could be like, man, he really was a specific mentor to me? Because it's one thing to move into that role, Nate, but it's a whole other deal to move into that role and do it successfully. And when we think back to our time within the Bakken, I think that transition has been made very successfully. And I just wonder, is there somebody in your life that you can point to, like, I don't know, that taught you that work ethic or taught you about embracing that opportunity?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the work ethic, it's a work ethic now to where I started working, back in, I don't even know, 95, 96. That's where it started. I mean, it always starts in the home, right? With your parents pushing that type of mindset. Go work for what you want. So I've always had that drive to work. I've always worked or tried to, take care of what I need to take care of. And obviously, as you progress, right, because you go from a single young man to a married young man, now your responsibility is increased, and now you're trying to take care of your own home, and that drive's always been there. And it definitely started in the household, growing up. Out here, you already mentioned Calvin, but like to watch him work, nobody did it better. The way he could motivate the guys, get production out of guys, do it in a positive way, reinforce, like a reinforcement type of role. He'd be on his tools and right next to him, answering the questions, working with them. It was really, and at that time I was coming in just with service calls, so I was just helping out as needed. But to see him have that management style at such a young age was so impressive, and I couldn't even keep up with him. We'll just blame my age at that point, because he was half my age at that point, right? He was a lot younger than me. So obviously he could it was just impressive to see him take charge and run it the way he ran it. And I didn't know Calvin too well. He was always really quiet at the group meetings and things like. He never spoke up. And I don't know how, but we ended up riding together for a couple things, and boy, I was like, man, this guy just won't stop talking. Who the heck is this guy? just started talking. What a cool experience, because we got to know each other's backgrounds from, how we grew up, even into religion, but we got to know each other in such a short time back then. Couple car rides, like you mentioned, and we knew each other's backstories. But he just had this engagement, like he really cared. When you're talking with him, he really cared where you were coming from. And same with the guys. I know all the guys had the respect, and I know he had the respect for the guys out here. It's really cool to see. But if I could say somebody I'd like to be like, it would be that Calvin Blakeman. What he did out here was very impressive.
Yeah, you don't find leaders. I think sometimes we think that leaders are these arrogant know-it-alls who, just kind of strut their weight around. But it seems to me that the successful leaders are the ones who have a lot of humility and oftentimes are just leading by example. They're in the fight. Mm-hmm. When you need them, they're there. And they're there early in the morning, they're there late at night, whatever it is, they're there. And they got your back. And I think that's what Calvin really instilled when I worked with him, and still to this day, like I can't keep up with the guy. And I oftentimes think like the humility of a leader is so important, but right with it, you have to be like a servant style leader too. So, a humble person who just humbly tells everyone else what to do doesn't get very far. But a person with humility that's also willing to get crap on their boots, and lace them up when needed, those are the kind of people that you can get around and work with. And I think they get places. What's your favorite type of work to do out here?
I'm going to say this is probably the hardest position I've ever been in, is managing clients and guys. And it's not a bad thing, but it's different. It's not something I'm used to. What's my favorite part? Or, favorite, I want to be honest with you. Jason called me up, Jason Perry, one of our managers up there in Williston. He called me up. He was shorthanded, asked for some help. We didn't have anybody available. And I told him I could do it. I'd do it. I think I helped him out for like 2 days out on service calls with this client. And to be honest with you, I loved every minute of it. It was, not to say, this is the management. It's a mental game as well, but the troubleshooting that goes into a service call, and then the satisfaction of getting it up and running, it's a great feeling.
It's got to be awful rewarding. Mm-hmm. when you can call a client and say, yep, it's done, and she's running.
Back up and running.
Especially when oil is at 80 plus a barrel and everyone's freaking out when that well is down. The thing that, when you're in management, you really have to start tweaking your mind. Maybe it's not this way for you, but for me, I've had to, in my head, success or like production is something I physically went out and I did and I seen, right? Mm-hmm. When you're in management, you have to think like, well, it was a good day because all my crews had work. They all went and did it safely. They all came back. I went out on the location. I worked with them a little bit. Life is good. But really, even the fact that Jason called you, if you hadn't been a good manager, Jason would have never felt free to call you. There's so much trust that is necessary for, a manager to be able to call his boss and say, hey, I'm short a guy. Because if you're the kind of a manager who's, well, go figure it out, he ain't going to call you, right? But he knew if he called Nate would look around and try and find people to send out. And if he couldn't find anyone, guess who's going to show up? It's Nate. Right? So it's easy for you to say, well, that was a successful day, but don't forget that if you hadn't built that trust, he would have never called, right? But yeah, you're right. It's a mental game when you're in management. And I think everything looks rosy from afar, and you're right. You didn't call and say, hey, can I please be a manager? But I think when we look for people, we look for certain qualities of people, and you've met those qualities, and I think you're doing a stand-up job, so I hope you don't leave. But if you need to find a different position within the company, I guess we'll go that route. But I think the whole point of this is that what do you call yourself, a Utah boy or Idaho boy?
I don't even know at this point. Does it really matter?
Yeah, I guess you're a Bakken boy. This young Bakken boy, right? He comes out and starts out as an apprentice electrician and gets into that I&E role, moves into a management role. First, you were just a lead, then a client relations manager, essentially, and then end up managing the Watford office. At the time, we were in Newtown. Our guys work a lot in Newtown, compared to Watford here. But we made the decision to move to Watford during COVID, and of course now you've managed both Watford and Williston. But that's quite a little journey along there. And I don't think it's something that we can take honor for or whatever. It's just a journey, right? Everyone has one of those. And I don't even know if it was intentional, right? Like you and Mandy didn't sit down one night and say, hey, here's the deal, Mandy. I'd love to go be a manager of all these people and blah. You're like, hon, we got to pay some bills.
It's really just trying to take care of our homestead.
We got to change this.
Mm-hmm.
And North Dakota is a great spot to go and do it. So if you had to do it all again, or if you were talking to some 30-year-old young married guy with a wife who's struggling to pay bills, would you say come out to the Bakken?
Absolutely. I do all the time. There's always opportunity out here. Like I said, I've gotten, some of the family members they don't understand that, why the Bakken. I mean, it's like I said, it's somewhere where you can support. The work is good. It's a fair wage, and you can make it here. And it can be a life. It can turn your life around very quickly.
And that's not even just at Wescom, right? There's opportunity at our competitors and everywhere. I was just at a conference today, and that's a theme. Everyone needs people. There's not enough people in the Bakken again. But there's also so much to do out here, and the people that are out here. You said you went to Minneapolis one time for a football game, right?
Mm.
The difference in people, and this isn't a knock on Minneapolis at all, I'm just stating that there's a clear difference in North Dakota, in the heart of the Bakken, with the kind of people you deal with, the kind of people you deal with in the gas station, the kind of people who are at the grocery store. I get a lot of eyebrow raises when I tell people I'm going to the Bakken. Like, the Bakken? Have you heard what happens in the Bakken? Like, yeah, I'll tell you what happens there. There's a bunch of guys who work their tail off, and gals, by the way, that work their tail off out there. That's what the Bakken is. And when they're not working, like last time we were out, John and I and John, the two Johns and I went out with Russ, and we're out on Lake Sakawea fishing, right? And you were with that time that Lane took us out we won't talk about that story. That was a near-death experience for all of us.
It's a little scary.
But those guys are going out hunting every night. They're out in the Badlands. They're out on the lake. There's no shortage of things to do out here. And I think does it seem to you that in 2022 compared to 2014, industry's done a bit better job with work-life balance out here?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's night and day now. The work is still there if you need the hours, but it's not like that pressing, demand. There's you can still have a home life out here now. I don't think it wasn't always like that. It was, you were out here to work, but it's stable. And what's cool about that, and you mentioned, what happens out there in the Bakken, or we don't have that anymore. That's gone. The Bakken, it's a good place to live out here. It's developed. It's maintained. We don't have that riffraff anymore, and you say, that curse out COVID, but to be honest with you, it filtered out a lot of the riffraff too. And the ones that stayed, they're the hard, dedicating workers, and they're the guys you want to work with day in, day out. So
that was another positive of COVID.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's tremendous opportunity. I was making the case to our team on Monday night at home in a meeting that this has all the feel of 2019 or 2018 written all over. And what happened in 2018 is we could never catch our breath. All we needed was people. And by 2019, it felt like we were getting those people. We still had turnover because some folks move out here or come out here. They just come by themselves and they do it for a while and determine they don't like it, because really you better be willing to work at least 50 hours a week. And then if you want, many of our guys are doing 70-hour weeks sometimes, or could be more. But, maybe that's too much for them, so they move back home. Some guys come out here and then they bring their family, and their family tries it and not for me. Or a lot of times lately it sticks and they're here. But what I'm saying is, back in 2018, from 2018 to 2019, those folks that were with us had tremendous opportunity. And I feel like that same thing is existing right now. If you have an inclination that you should try something different, and let's be honest, at Wescom, we're not trying to hire everyone if you have a pulse. We want you to be ready to come out and work. And like I've said at some of our safety meetings in different times, please, guys, if you're here to just collect a paycheck and be lazy, do me a favor and quit before we root you out, because this team won't let you survive. They just won't. They work too hard. So I think that now is a great time to come join the Bakken.
Absolutely is.
Well, thank you, Nate.